Ons gesels nou met City-Press-redakteur Ferial Haffajee oor die landwyse fees must fall betogings nadat studentebetogers in Kaapstad die halfjaar begrotingsvoorlegging in die parlement ontwrig en gevra dat die minister van Hoër Onderwys Blydin Nzimande hulle moet toespreek. Ferial, this reminds very strongly of the protests in 1976, but you tweeted yesterday that it's not remotely the same. What did you mean? Are there no similarities at all?
I think that there are. Yesterday was a very resonant day. In fact, the week has been very resonant. It really takes us back. I think that there are enormous resonances with 1976, but also enormous differences. So what might some of them be? The first thing is that obviously it's a young generation leading an older generation. In 76, the students' protest then, they fundamentally changed the direction of our country. So whereas their parents had been quite tired of fighting against apartheid, those young people re-energized the struggle. You also saw many of them leaving to go into exile, a fundamental moment. And then I think you began to see big political changes within the liberation movements. What's different this time? Firstly, it's not high school students, it's university students. It's not localized, it's quite national, and it's not working class youth, it's actually quite middle class youth. So if you look at their smartphones, their lovely tackies, their accents, etc., I think these are young people who've been brought to the gates of plenty, but they don't have plenty, and that's the difference.
It almost seems that the generation of students protesting now is coming up against the protesters, the generation of protesters from 1976, whom are now today's political leaders. Do you think that that these leaders forgot where they actually came from?
You know, yesterday when we watched the Minister of Higher Education, Blydin Nzimande, finally coming out of Parliament, he just looked so dated. You wouldn't say that this was somebody who had been in those trenches. The same goes for all the ministers arranged with him. It felt to me like the ANC was very good at protesting and it was very good at revolt, but it has absolutely no idea how to manage those things once it is in office. Same thing goes, I guess, for Adam Habib and Max Price, one of WITS, the other of UCT, who were themselves student activists. At many points in these past 2 weeks, it looks like they'd been taken by surprise. And while they started off shouting at, you know, we were here in 76, I think they've now gone into listening mode. Where you do see again that reversion of one generation telling another, leading another. Very exciting for me.
Do you think they are actually listening? Do you think they will listen to the students? Do you think that even though this is a different protest from 1976, that it's also going to bring about huge change?
I think it's already brought about huge and significant change. For one, many of the country's biggest universities have been forced to close. That is an act of listening. A 10% increase, absolutely impossible given that inflation is much lower. Put it on top of quite stressed student households. That's been brought down to 6%. My guess is that we'll probably see fee increases put on hold and somehow money will be freed up to pay for it. Very good thinking this morning. Frans Cronje, Professor Jonathan Jansen, and Stuart Tebolt of the Financial Mail, all putting forward sums that show us that actually this can be done. We have the fiscal space to allow for free basic university education.
Protests started earlier this year with the Roads Must Fall and a campaign, and now it's about the fees must fall. Do you think that it's really about transformation and fees, or do you think these are sort of just the itchy scabs to a much more serious infection?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that this is about much more than fees. I'm putting the finishing touches on a book where I think this is the completion of our revolution, where we went some of the way. We decided we want to settle around a nice rainbow nation where we all love each other, and in that process, important as it was, we didn't complete the work. Nelson Mandela and his generation, they didn't complete the hard work. And I think the saying that's really I'm thinking about quite heavily is the only way to get out is through, and I'm not sure that we went all the way through. Children are taking us there. Well, they say we mustn't call them children. They are students and young people.
Big difference,
yes.
Disrupting classes, looting, trying to keep Parliament hostage. Do you think this is the right way of doing it, or do you think there's a better road towards reaching their goal?
I saw another side to that story overnight. I saw lecturers and students holding overnight classes at Wits, very interesting. This morning I saw pictures of the Wits students cleaning up the Senate House. Obviously overturning cars, making people fearful, stopping lecturers from leaving, stopping other students from writing. Those are acts of intimidation. And we trust that as the students begin to meet, that they are also listening to the message from their elders.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think, what should government be doing to handle this in the right manner? Do you think they are, or what should they be doing?
Yesterday when I sat watching Parliament, I really felt like there was a different way of doing that. I could imagine a Nelson Mandela walking out of the House of Parliament with his full cabinet, going to the students, shaking their hands, asking their names, listening to them, but also saying to them that it's not good to jump over the gates into the Houses of Parliament. I think there was a very, very different way of managing things. And perhaps this morning all politicians are sitting and thinking that mistakes were made, because last night already Thandi Modise of Parliament was saying we could have done things differently.
What is your overall feeling about the students? And because in a way, one almost feels that these students, one can be proud of them, hey? Because they've got something and they're really fighting for it and they're going for it. And they are trying to keep it sort of in a civil manner.
Sure. So I started out being like, oh hell, they must just learn and get their degrees and take us into the future because we so badly need to get there. And after yesterday, I'd been, as an older person, enormously humbled because I think they've put social justice back on the agenda. I loved their unity across races and across classes. I loved how lawyers, how ordinary people came out to support them. I think we found ourselves a little bit, although it may not feel like that right now.
They are sort of an example to us. And what is your feeling? Do you think do you think this will finish in a nice way or end in a nice way? Do you think this is going to happen soon, or do you think we're going to see these protests going on throughout the exam? Or what
I
do you
was
think?
seeing last night that UP students intend to march on the Union buildings on Friday. I thought that it had reached the end of its news cycle, but it really seems like the students are quite determined to go ahead. So certainly I think, like Roads Must Fall, like it's been the year of the student, we haven't seen the end of it yet. Are they going to write exams? That's the big question for me. I saw University of Limpopo students insisting that they will not start exams this week. So big story. Huh?
Ferial, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Dit is Ferial Haffajee, redakteur van City Press.